So please welcome from Ripple Training, Mark Spencer and Steve Martin.
Hey, how's everyone doing? Good. All right. All right. So we're going to go through some of the new features of Final Cut 10.0.6. Not an insignificant release. It's been 14 months roughly since Final Cut was introduced to the world. A lot has happened since then. This particular release, in my humble estimation, and Mark's as well, most significant release to date. When Apple introduced it, a year and a half ago or so, there was some controversy. A lot of that has trailed off now, and what we're seeing with each subsequent release is more and more feature enhancements, much more workflow related. This particular release focuses on enhancements and improvements across the entire workflow. So you're going to see tonight, you're going to see enhancements in importing, editing, working with audio, effects, and export. So Apple kind of took a look at everything that was going, how people were using it, and there is actually a button up here that you can actually send Apple feedback, and they took all of this information, and this release looks to be the most user-driven incarnation to date. So I don't want to preamble too much because I want to get into the app, and really we're challenged in time-wise to get all of this stuff in an hour, and we'll do our best. And if you have burning questions, if you could just kind of wait till the end so we can get through, and then Mark and I will be available for questions. We'll just jump right in. Okay, so the first thing that is new is what Apple's calling the unified import window. Previously, in Final Cut 10, there was actually two ways to import. There was an import files command and an import camera command. So it's a little confusing because files can exist on cameras and on hard drive, so which one do you use? So they've simplified it, and they made essentially one single import window. And essentially, all of your import targets now appear up here. So they've organized them to cameras, devices, camera archives, which I'll talk about shortly, and a new favorites section. And this is actually pretty cool if you're working on a storage area network and you're collaborating. We'll get more into that in a moment. Notice again, all your cameras are connected, and they appear. Now, I have a GoPro camera connected via USB, and on this side I have a card reader that came out of Canon DSLR, and they both appear in the camera section. They're both plugged in at the same time. This is what's nice, is all these devices plugged in, they just show up. Final Cut Pro now supports what's called Picture Transfer Protocol. So if you have a DSLR camera, you can plug it right in, and all of your images will now show up. All your video and your clips will now show up in this browse area right here. So there's no need to preview in the Finder. You don't have to copy them. Everything's right there. You can just essentially select your images and click import. And so greatly simplified. The other thing is selections, how you go ahead and make selections. This is something that was pretty much on every editor's wish list. The ability to make selections and have Final Cut kind of remember those selections. We call them persistent selections. But Apple went one further. They're not just giving you persistent selections, but now they're giving you the ability to make multiple selections on a clip. Pretty powerful. So I'm going to go ahead and select this GoPro camera here. And I'm going to go and select a clip over here. Let's see. By the way, when you select a clip, it shows up in this area here. You have two views now. In the import window, you have essentially a list view, and then if you click this button, you can look at it in the traditional kind of a thumbnail view or a film strip view. This is a list view. And what's nice about this particular view is that you can arrange your metadata columns just like you can in the event browser. You can select them, move them around, you can change them, you can sort by duration, you can control click, and you get lists, you can decide what you want to show, what you want to hide right from this list. So as you go through here, you just select a clip, and then you could start skimming through it. Let me see if I can find a clip here. I'm going to select name. By the way, when you click on these various headers, they will sort by that particular criteria. So if you click start, it'll sort by start time, etc. So go ahead and click the name column here. And let's scroll down here, trying to find a particular clip. Let's see. There we go. All right, so this is a clip I want to work with. And What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and skim through the clip. This is like a skimmer. And I'm going to go ahead and make a selection. So let's say I want to grab a selection at the beginning of this kind of divers descending. I want to just grab a little bit of that. So what I'm going to just do is I'm just going to drag across and make a selection. Okay? So there's selection 1. Right? Now, that can be imported to be sure, but I want to show you this. If I click off the clip, come back and select the other clip, you'll notice that that selection now it's now persistent. So it's part of the clip now. So you click on your clip, and Final Cut now remembers your previous selection. Now, multiple selection range is really important. So, for example, I have this long clip, and I want to choose different portions of the clip. I don't want to bring in the entire clip. By the way, I'm going to hit Option X. That's a quick way to clear out in and out points in a clip. I'm going to just go ahead and play, and you can actually use keyboard shortcuts to mark your ranges, like Command-Shift-I, Command-Shift-O, so you can actually play, and then as it's playing, let's see, so I'm going to hit Command, yeah, or the I and O for the first one. So we'll just do I and O for the first one. I and O, let it play, and then Command-Shift-I, Command-Shift-O, Command-Shift-I, Command-Shift-O. Okay, so we have multiple selection ranges. Now, if I click the Import Selected button down here, it'll bring in those clips in the selection ranges as 3 separate items into the event browser. Now, to my knowledge, this is an industry first, being able to just take a totally long clip and go ahead and just drag out a bunch of selections, like as many as you want, and then input them as pieces. So I think it's a pretty powerful workflow enhancement with regard to importing. So what I'm going to do is import that now. I'm going to go ahead and click Import, and I'm going to create a new event. Let's call this diving. And now you'll notice that because it's coming right off the card, you don't have the option to not copy the material, because obviously if you ejected the card, your media would be offline. So that's checked by default. You can choose to optimize or not optimize. I'm not going to optimize it now. I'm just going to go ahead and click Import. But before I do, I want to point out there's this little checkbox down here at the bottom. It says Close Window After Import. A lot of editors were erroneously assumed that in the previous incarnation of Final Cut that once you started importing, the import had to completely finish before the window closed. The window would just stay open all the time. So it was confusing. So now, with that checkbox, the window will close and say, you keep working. So kind of handy.
So you could leave it open if you wanted to import more. So you could start an import and continue to skim clips and review clips and choose clips to import. But the fact is, if you have a bunch of stuff to import, you can start working with clips immediately, even though they're importing in the background. You don't have to stop working.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, this would be a perfect example of when I'd want to do. Yeah. This would be a good example when I might want to do that. Is that I know that I want to start working with my DSLR CF card in a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and if I uncheck that, okay, and I'll click Import, selected, and I'll just go ahead and create another event again, diving, and I'll click Import. Import window doesn't close, but it's still importing in the background. So now, like Mark said, I can go over here and select my next import target. In this case, I'm going to select my 7D camera, and I'll go ahead and switch views here. And now I can then go through my next target and start picking content out of here while the other item is still importing in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and just drag out a range there, and then command drag that, and then there we go. Import selected, okay? And notice it's already targeted to the event I want, which is the diving event. Click Import, and now that stuff starts going into the same event. So you can see how fast it is. You get all your imports there, and boom, I can get all that stuff in, make selections, and bring that stuff in fairly quickly.
And now, even though it continues to import, you can close this window and start working, even though these clips are continuing to import. You don't have to wait for them all to import. You can work with anything that's...
Yeah, you could tell even if that clip's... Yeah, there it is. You get a little time indicator, let you know. But these clips, like these clips here, are the first clip I selected off my GoPro camera, and they're just those little pieces that were in the selection range. So, pretty handy. Okay, so there you have it. All right, so that's essentially the unified import window. One other thing I want to show you with regard to this window I think is pretty darn cool. If I go back and open the window, by the way, you can hit Command-I to open the window as well. It's the same command as previous. And there's some additional items I want to point out here is that you can now peruse devices. So that like this, I can look at my hard drive and I can see all of my hierarchical folder structure, and I can get media right here off the right out of the Finder. I have these things called camera archives, which I got to tell you are just tremendous feature, because you can take someone hands you an SD a drive or a solid state disk, from a red camera or anything, you immediately turn it into a camera archive, and what it does is it preserves the entire camera's data structure, everything within the camera, all of the metadata, and essentially turns it into a little self-contained little import item. Like that GoPro camera, I turned that GoPro card that's off of this little GoPro camera here, I turned into a camera archive. And what's really great about that is that camera archive now, all the clips now show up in that camera archive, and I can go through it, I can make selections, just like if it was off of the regular CF card, or in this case, the camera card. So really great. Now, so if you're coming from a tape, like a videotape, that's a really great way to work with it, is just archive it and then work with selections off of the camera archive. One last thing regarding this window, you have this new section called Favorites. This is pretty nifty. Let's say I'm working with maybe on a SAN, where you got a bunch of editors working on a storage area network, and you have like a folder full of like sound effects or music. I have a client who does it all the time, all the sound effects and music they use for their promos. Well, why not have that as a favorite target, so that every time they launch Final Cut Pro, it's there. You don't have to go searching for it. So all you need to do is, and here I got a folder of red footage. I'm just going to, by example, I'm going to grab this folder out here, drop it on the favorites icon, and now I have a quick way to get to my import target right there. So it's a fast way. It could be a SAN, locally mounted disk, externally, what have you. Pretty nice little feature.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure, go ahead.
Just on the, if you are importing from like a DSLR, a 7D or 5D or something, some people are thinking, well, I'm just going to grab the whole folder structure from my card. I'll stick my card in a card reader, and I'm just going to drag the folder structure. I'll be okay. And that's really not what you want to do. You're going to lose metadata that way. What you want to do is either do what Steve did here and just select the bits you want and grab them immediately off the card, and they'll be copied. Or if you want the whole card, what I would prefer to do is make a camera archive. So you stick that card in your card reader, you make a camera, or directly off the camera, make a camera archive, which is a perfect clone of that card, and the only way to make a perfect clone. Then you can import anything off of that you want at any time. You've got a perfect backup for it.
Okay, so let's do a transition. Since we already have this window open, let's talk about Red workflow. A lot of people like the Red camera, awesome imagery, reasonable price. And, they're a dime a dozen around here. You can rent them fairly inexpensively. The thing is that, Apple announced this way back in the NAB that, native Red workflow. So what does that mean in terms of your workflow within Final Cut Pro, and how does it work? What's the best way to work with Red footage? How should you work with it? Because there's all kinds of different workflow. I know Apple's probably working on a white paper like they did previously this is the recommended workflow, but there's different paths you can take here. So I'm going to give you kind of a general overview, and then you might want to hone that or tweak that workflow to your particular production environment. I already have a shortcut to my Red footage folder, conveniently, so I'll go ahead and select that. And, before I go any further, I do mention that you can't look at or import any Red footage until you download the free Red plugin from red.com. There's actually an import plugin that you'll need to download. Okay, once you do download this plugin and install it, all of your what's called Red Digital clips in your Red Digital magazines will show up in the browse area here. Let me just go ahead and zoom here. And you can see here, there's my R3D file. And what's nice about this is that you can view the metadata pretty easy by, again, control-clicking in here. I'm going to choose, let's go down here. You can choose frame size. I just want to show you, frame size-wise, this particular Red clip is 5K. Okay, now this was shot on an Epic, but Final Cut Pro 10 will support 2K to 5K, various frame rates right there. You can see there's the full raster Red file right there in the import metadata field. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and open this up here, and let's talk about playback for a moment. Okay, here's the thing. One of the things I mentioned in my Ken Stone article is something we've learned this past year is that Final Cut Pro is wicked fast on the new hardware, on Mac hardware. If you haven't run Final Cut 10 on even a late iMac with a lot of robust graphics card, or in this case we're running this on a MacBook Pro, the Retina with, 2 gigs of RAM and 16 gigs. It screams. Here's the thing. 16 gig.
It likes it.
It does, 16. What's that? Quad core or it's 8 core?
Yeah, it's quad. It has well, it shows 8 cores, but it's the quad core. Yeah,
Well,
but it's
Mark
quad
likes
dual
to
core.
show all his cores working all the time.
I like that. I like it to track.
He likes to know what's my cores doing at the moment.
Get busy.
So the cores are important because look. The thing about, it's called red raw, okay? But it is somewhat of a misnomer. It's not like raw in the sense that there's uncompressed. I mean, the dirty little secret is red is a compressed format. Sorry, it is. Okay, and the bottom line is you still need a lot of horsepower to play that back in real time. Now, this is a clip. This is a 5 gig clip. I think it's what the frame rate is on it. But basically, I'm playing this right now. This is overcranked. But I'm playing this right now off his MacBook, and it's playing back pretty much in real time. Without any assist, without any optimization, without any proxy media. Let me go ahead and open another clip in here. And here's another one here. And I'm just, again, I'll play this. This is pretty straightforward. It's just a silly tilt pan back and forth of a vine with fruit on it. But bottom line is that, look, with the right hardware, you can play this stuff back. Red, raw, 5K material. Now, I will like to buttress my comment with the fact that you do a lot of red processing. I would recommend you get the Red Rocket card because Final Cut Pro 10 has hooks into the Red Rocket card that will increase your playback performance. And more importantly, if you do decide to transcode your red media, your raw media, to Apple ProRes, the Red Rocket card will use its dedicated chipsets to crunch your debayering much faster. Okay, so Red Rocket's a great addition, but I recommend if you do a lot of red processing or raw processing. Let's see. Oh yeah, the other thing is playback performance is largely determined by your hardware, and if you're trying to play this on a FireWire 400 drive, you're probably not going to be too satisfied. Really recommend, a fat pipe, Thunderbolt, fiber channel, something to really push that data through. So there's a lot of components that will give you the proper playback, and the drive components and your throughput is certainly a factor in that. Okay. Enough of that little background. Let's talk a little bit about bringing this in. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this clip here, and I'm going to actually, let's select both of these clips, and I'm going to say import selected. Right. Boom. Actually, wrong one. There's a prettier shot of that than a bunch of slow-mo grapes. Okay, here we go. I'm going to just bring these in. Now, we'll talk a little bit about your import settings. Now, you can choose to copy, which means it's going to move that huge raw file to your hard drive, or you can use, by not checking, it's going to make a reference. We'll talk a little bit about this for a moment. If you choose Create Optimized Media, what's going to happen is Final Cut Pro is going to create ProRes 4x4 media out of your red, okay, which will preserve all of the killer fidelity. This is unlike the other ProRes renders because it's 4422. This is 444. Or it creates proxy. You can create proxy, which means that it'll create quarter resolution. Now, something about, a little dialogue came in. By the way, whenever you get dialogues with lots of words, you don't know what it means, just click OK and you'll be fine. All right? Now, essentially what this means is if you choose to create proxy, you will not be able, when you start adjusting the red raw data to make changes, it's going to want to bake those changes into the optimized file, and if you do this, then you're going to have to lose your proxy and start over. So here's the thing that you're going to want to do. If you know you're going to want to manipulate the red raw metadata, don't create proxy media at this stage. Just bring it in, manipulate it, and then create proxy or optimized media after you've made your changes. Okay, so there's, again, 2 ways to do it. If you know that someone else is going to be color grading your product at the end of the pipeline and you need the best performance, then by all means, create proxy media or optimized media now. But if you're going to be working on it and doing the color grading in Final Cut and you're going to be finishing it, then you're probably going to want to leave that unchecked. Or you can even use a third party like Red Cine X, but there's different ways you want to go. Different ways you could go, I should say. So what I'm going to do is leave those unchecked right now. I'm going to click Import. And I'm going to close the window. Actually, where did it go? Did it go? Oh, it went into diving. Okay. That's exactly where I wanted it. Okay. All right, so here we have this clip. Notice it came in immediately. There it is. Now, how do we modify it? What I'm going to do is bring up the inspector.
With the fancy new icon,
With
by the way.
the fancy new icon, yes. Some people on the net thought, oh, a new mixer. Sorry. So I'm going to go into the info button, and let's see here, select the clip. And you'll notice a fancy new button down here called Modify Red Raw Settings. So we're going to go ahead and click that and bring up this little panel, this little window. And what we're going to do is I'm just going to go through and mess with some of the metadata settings. All we're doing here, we're not affecting the file, we're just changing the metadata, basically the red metadata file, and how the clip is being interpreted and displayed. So I'm going to go ahead and change the color space. I'm just going to go through and mess with a few things here. I'm going to change, bring the ISO down to 400. I'm going to go ahead and mess with the contrast a little bit. And what I'm working with is, and this is the beauty of Red Raw workflow, is that you're working with all of the 12-bit data that's in the file to pull out all of the contrast or the shadows or what have you. And you can see I'm working with it pretty much the way I would work with it in Red Cine X. It's like these controls here are a subset of Red Cine X.
And it's pretty analogous. If you shoot stills at all, and you can shoot RAW or JPEG or both, it's the same kind of idea that you're working in RAW, and you can manipulate the data before ending up with a JPEG at the end of the day. It's a very analogous kind of workflow.
Yeah. Okay. So let's do. The thing is that you're going to want to apply your settings after you go adjust them. It'll take about. But I can apply. So now it's applied. We'll go ahead and grab this one. I'll select this one, and I'll go ahead and do the same thing. I'll bring up the red raw settings, and I'll just kind of mess with the contrast a little bit, and play with the exposure. You can see I have a lot of want to bring the detail of the shadows. It's pretty cool. Now, at any point, let's say you've adjusted them and you want to turn it back into proxy media. If you select the clip, and I'm going to go ahead and select the shorter one so we don't have to wait for as long to render. You'll notice over here in the inspector, at this point, if you generate a proxy, it's going to take all of the settings that you just changed and it's going to bake them into the optimized file. It's going to actually bake them in. So I'm going to go ahead and not do that, actually, because there's another, it'll actually do proxy, but there's another way you can do this. You go to the File menu, and you go to Transcode Media. You'll get the option here to create optimized or proxy media, where the inspector only gives you the option to create proxy media. All right, so in this case, we'll go ahead and choose Optimize, click OK. And then what's happening is it's just going to chug away in the background, and this is where we get to watch Mark's cores go crazy.
Yeah. I like this part.
Yeah, this is my favorite part of the show, is watching the cores kind of go. Yeah.
Now, I have to say, I just did a big project at Cinema 4D that required a lot of rendering, and I had the previous, I guess, 2 generations below MacBook Pro, 2010, and it was very long renders with a Cinema 4D 3D project. Days of rendering, and my rendering went down. This wasn't twice as fast, it was 4 times faster. So I had to actually get this machine to do that job, or I could not have delivered it in time, but it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, so this is where, if you're doing a lot of this processing, transcoding, this is where a red Rocket card really will benefit you, because you can see that even with all of his cores chugging away, it could take some time to turn this essentially raw
5K.
metadata into 5K into actual optimized media. All right, so I'm going to let that chug away in the background, so we don't have to watch that finish. I'm going to now hand over the mic to Mark, and he's going to go through some of the new editorial features that have been added into Final Cut Pro 10.
Do you want to switch it? Hey guys, anybody know if the Giants are still winning? A little distracted.
Don't be distracted.
All right, I won't be distracted. So, editorial. So we've looked a little bit at some import options, and I want to talk a little bit about a few changes. And like Steve said, these changes, it's not necessarily one big thing that really sticks out as a huge enhancement. There are a couple of very big ones, but it's kind of changes along every part of the workflow that make things easier and faster to do. So Steve already talked a little bit about these creating ranges and creating multiple ranges and having ranges stay there or stay persistent. If I grab this guy, so if I've imported some media and I am in my event browser just like when we were already importing media, now when we have media imported, we want to start working with it, we want to make selections and start editing. I can do the things I used to do. I can drag out a range. By the way, you could always, like, it looks like, oh, I actually wanted to start here in the middle, but if I try to drag, I can't because I've got this hand that's expecting me to drag it into the timeline. If you have a selection like that, you hold the Option key down, you can always drag within there and create a new range. What's neat is, as Steve mentioned on the import window, now also in the browser, any selection you make remains. Okay, so you've made an in and out point. Those in and out points are persistent. You select another clip, they're there. If you quit Final Cut and launch it again, that range will remain. So it's always available. If you click on the clip again, it becomes selected. Option X will clear it. So something that a lot of folks have been asking for a lot. Once you create that range, you can make a favorite or add keywords or do any of the things that you've done before. Those are all still available. But this is kind of a nice way to see a range that you've worked with before. If you match frame back, you'll get a range again. The other thing that's neat about this, if I switch over to a kind of a list view here, just to see more of the clip, get up there, is frequently, just as we imported and selected multiple ranges, you can do this so once you've imported. So you can either drag out a range and then hold the Command key down and drag out an additional range. But in reality, you're not going to do that, unless it's something that you can really see while you're skimming and see the pieces you want. But in something like this, an interview clip, you're going to want to listen to it. You can't really just kind of click and drag. So I'll hit Option X. What you can do, however, is just I'll tap I and play it. And I'll play a piece. Actually, I should select one that has something he actually says in here, right here. That's a short one, too. So I'll just hit O, and I'll go forward. And let's say there's another piece that I want right here. Instead of hitting I again, which will clear, it'll just start a new range. If I hold Shift and Command down and hit the I key, it'll start a new range. And then I can play through that piece, find the endpoint that I want, Shift Command O, and I've got two ranges. So you can see how powerful this is. You're working through an interview clip, and you can go through and just mark the good bits that you want out of that. And then once they're all selected, you could make favorites, or you could add keywords, or you could just hit E from the append edit and immediately drop all of those pieces into your timeline. And you've got a rough layout immediately by picking pieces out of a clip. And they're still there. So you can always go back and you can see them again. If you want to get rid of them, Option X will get rid of both. If you select just one and hit Option X, it'll get rid of one of them. So a lot of easy ways to work with these selection ranges now and use them over and over again. So kind of a good new feature in there. Now, while you're in the timeline, a couple people have mentioned today, let me get rid of this stuff right here. Things seem a little weird in the timeline when you're clicking on things. And what's happening is this. What now happens is when you want to move the playhead in the timeline, you can click anywhere in the ruler area to move the playhead. So for instance, I'll move it over this sun shot here. And I don't know why I'm not, there we go. So I've got this shot of the sun. Now, if I go over and click on this grape shot, I'm going to click right on the clip itself. Notice the playhead did not move. Okay? So this is the new behavior. You're able to go and select a clip anywhere that you want in your timeline without moving the playhead. You can leave the playhead right where it is. You can select a clip, you can trim a clip, you can move them around, and leave the playhead in its original location, which frequently is something you want. It can be something to be careful about. For instance, when I move my mouse up now we see the sunrise because that's where the playhead is, okay? However, the grapes clip is selected. So for instance, if I were to make a color correction at this point of some kind, and I'll just do something obvious, I'll desaturate that grapes clip. We don't see a change because you might think you're working on this sunrise because that's where the playhead is, but we're working on the selected clip. See, there's the desaturation. So I like this behavior. If you want to override it, it's very easy. Just hold the Option key down when you click on a clip, and the playhead will move with you. Okay? This is exactly the opposite behavior before. Before, you used to have to hold the Option key down to avoid moving the playhead. Now you hold the Option key down to move the playhead, okay? So it's just something to consider. But for my workflow, I often I'm selecting a clip and working on it, and I want the playhead where it was. So I kind of like this. You just need to remember if you want it to move, to hold the Option key to move it along. Okay, this next thing is something that I love. So Final Cut Pro 10 really works on this concept of connected clips, right? We've got a primary storyline, and we have clips connected to it. So below we have a connected audio clip. This is our primary storyline here where we've got this interview footage, and we have a little connected storylines above it and a connected title. Most of the time this worked great. So if I want to take this clip here and move it, those connect clips will move with it, the title and the little B-roll shots as well. So I can move it over there and they all go with it. Most of the time that's what I want, but not always. For example, let's say I wanted this interview clip to start a little earlier in time here. Okay, we're watching this overview, this B-roll footage, and we want to hear Charles start talking a little earlier. Currently, if now I'm going to basically want to do a slide edit, so I'm going to actually use the position tool to do that. I'm going to hit P for the position tool, and now if I drag left, he moves, but all these other clips move with him, and now we're not going to be able to see that title, right? So I'm going to undo that. The key here is kind of a temporary override of connected clips. And the way you do it is you hold down the Grav key, which you might call the tilde key. It's the top left corner. And if you hold it down, make sure we're big here, you get this little icon that is a kind of a line through the connection point. And now if I click and drag, I can move this clip, and all the connected clips stay anchored where they are. So I can easily move this back in time and leave everything else where it was. Right. Which to me is a super useful way of overriding these connected clips, because they're usually great, but sometimes it takes a little workaround. Same thing with slipping it. If I hit T for the trim tool and I want to slip this clip, I hear a little soundbite he says later. Again, I run into the same problem. So I'll undo that. Again, just hold down that Grav key and drag, and I can slip and keep those connected clips without moving at all.
Yeah, good one.
Cool?
Yeah.
Okay. And you can also, of course, if you move the whole clip, everything moves. But if you hold the tilde key down or the Grav key, you can move that clip, and only it will move. Okay. So kind of a little thing, but a huge workflow improvement. It just makes things go much faster and easier. All right. Compound clips. So check this out.
This one's huge.
Here's the idea. So compound clips have been around since the beginning of Final Cut Pro 10, and they're a way, if you've used to Final Cut 7, think of them as nesting. Take a bunch of clips, you nest them together in their own sequence. Compound clips are similar, but the way they've worked is they've been independent of each other. Any changes to one don't affect others. But now there's basically a parent-child relationship that goes on with compound clips, much like multicam clips. So for example, I have this little show open. I'll just play real quick. If we have the audio here. It sounds like we have audio. Okay, so it's just some audio, some titles, some green screen. And let's say I want to use the show open repeatedly. It's a weekly podcast or something. What I can do is I'm going to make a compound clip out of this. So I'm going to select everything, go to the File menu, and say New Compound Clip. Now before, it would just make a compound clip. Now it actually brings up a dialog box and asks me to name it, and I'll call it Napa, and I'm going to put it into the compound clip event. And the reason it's asking me this, it's going to place this into the event. That's where the parent clip is now going to live. So if I now go to that compound event, there is this compound clip. Okay. Now you can see in the timeline it's nested it. Basically, it's made a compound clip of it. Nothing's changed in the timeline. It's the exact same project. But now we have another copy of it here. So if I take this guy, I'm just going to hit E to add another one to this project. But the idea is you could add this to any project, okay? Same compound clip. You can add it to multiple projects wherever you want. The other cool thing is because it's in the event browser, you can just give somebody the event. They don't actually need the project because this thing's in the event now, and they can pop it in wherever they want. So it's a great way to make pre-created chunks of content to drop into shows. So the idea is now, if we open up this parent, and by the way, parent-child isn't exactly right, because if you make a change to any of them, the one in the event or one in any project, it will change all of them. But I'll open up the one over in the event here, and what I'll do, I'll just go to this title in the inspector, and I'll change the, I'll go to the title inspector here, and I'll change this color of this background to green, let's say, and change these circles to squares. Do something pretty obvious, right? So the cool thing is, now I'm going to go back to that project, and not only has my, here's my clip up top. Is skimming turned on? No, it wasn't on. Okay, so that's the change in the kind of the parent clip, but also that change occurs here. For some reason, the thumbnails aren't updating, but the project updates, the compound clip updates with any changes that you make. And you saw both versions did. So that will propagate through to all of your projects. Now, sometimes you don't want that, right? Like, let's say your show, you change the theme, but you want to be in Napa or you want to be in Sonoma or something. You want something to be independent. One thing you can do is simply break apart a compound clip. So if I take this compound clip and go to Clip and choose Break Apart Clip Items, then boom, this guy is now completely independent from the one in the event, the compound clip in the event. So I can do anything I want to it. The other option, if I didn't want to break it apart, I'll undo that. While it's selected, if I go to the clip menu, there's a new command called Reference New Parent Clip. So if I want to make multiple copies of this new version, I can choose Reference New Parent Clip, and it will create a new copy in the event, and this one is now related to this second version in the timeline. Does that make sense? Okay, this is huge. I find this extremely powerful for especially working on reusing pieces all the time. Very, very useful way of working with compound clips. All right, how are we doing?
I'm doing good.
All right, good. So I'm going to move right along. So there's so much stuff here, and we actually had to cut chunks of this out because we wanted to cover each of these in enough depth, sort of the key things. So I want to talk a little bit about something that I've really am excited to see. Let's say, so I've got this little piece that is called The Roommate, where some guys come over, and we've got, and this has already been corrected, unfortunately. Let me see if I can fix it real quick. I took that out. So I've got a piece where I want to do some color correction. And what I'll do is I'll just do a more dramatic color correction. I'll just desaturate it. And I want to have that color correction applied everywhere else. Previously, if you copied and pasted effects between clips or between projects, it pasted everything, right? If you had scale transformations, effects, audio effects, whatever, you got everything. But now, if I hit Command-C to copy, then I'm going to hit Command-A to select everything. We have this lovely, lovely new command. Yeah. And what's cool, it's not, if you use Final Cut 7, it's actually better than that, because what it does, it takes things a little further. So first of all, it tells you exactly what you're copying from and what you're copying to. If it's one clip you're copying to, it'll name that clip. And then you can go through and select, and by the way, these parameters here are the exact same ones in the inspector. So basically anything in the video tab of the inspector, you can choose to copy or not. You can choose them all or select ones. You can choose specific audio ones or select ones, and then paste just what you want onto all those other clips. Okay, pretty straightforward, but the implementation is just beautiful. And it goes a little further than that, because if you've added other effects to a clip, for example, for this clip, if I've also gone into the audio section and maybe I've done something with panning, or maybe I've done something with equalization or audio analysis. Let's say there's some noise in here and I've turned on background noise removal. Or I've gone into the effects and I've added some effects in here. So I'll just go and add a video effect. Let's just say a directional, it's kind of crazy, but let me just grab something, a directional blur. So anything I add, I'll copy that, I'll go to another clip, Shift-Command-V is the keyboard shortcut, and now any effects that I've included are now show up separately, and I can choose each of those effects separately. It's not just like all effects. You can really go to a great deal of detail, like granular detail, and choose. And then any audio attributes you've added now show up on here, loudness, background noise removal, what have you. And then finally, you can choose whether or not you want to, how you want to handle keyframes which most of the time you're going to want to maintain timing rather than stretching them for most of the time. So a great implementation of something that is much, much, much needed. So great feature there. Here's something else that I think you will use frequently, which is we've been able to do hold frames in Final Cut Pro 10, which is great when you want to have something in the timeline freeze, but what if you want something from the event? So for instance, I've got this interview footage here, and now I want to have a bunch of cutaways, and I want to use some stills for that. So what I can do is I'll go to the event, and I've got a bunch of clips in here that are video, but I want to make stills. So I can just basically skim to wherever I want in that video, and then choose to edit, connect freeze frame, or option F. And what we'll do is connect a freeze frame, that particular frame of that video clip. If I zoom in here a little bit, you'll actually see it's also timestamped, so you see the exact time code that came from. Now the duration here depends on what you have in preferences. So if I go to Final Cut Preferences and change my default duration for still image, say, to 2 seconds, when I go back in, now it'll be 2 seconds. And now you don't even actually have to click on a clip to do this. If you use the keyboard shortcut, you can skim to where you want, press Option F. Go to the next one, skim to where you want, maybe the sun's coming through here, Option F. And you can very quickly build up a series of still images, which then you could, Command G, put in a little storyline, and then you can move them around, or Command T, add transitions, and very quickly build up a series of still images. So very nice new way to add still frames to your project from the event. It works in the timeline as well. Now you can make hold frames with Shift H, or you can, oops, that's hiding. Final Cut, oops. So retime, hold, Shift H. Oh, I hit Command H. Okay, so that makes a hold frame, which is great when you want it in the context of the clip. I'm going to undo that. But if you press Option, like let's move down to where his hands are kind of an interesting place. I want to use this somewhere else. Maybe where it's not too blurry. Maybe right on there. So if I press Option F, it'll create a separate freeze frame right in the timeline, okay? That's cool, but don't totally love that because it's shifting everything down in time when it's doing that. But what you could do, what I like to do with this, if I match frame, or I shouldn't use that terminology, if I reveal an event browser, I'm right-clicking, Shift F, it will show that exact clip, that exact frame up in the event, which I can now hit Option F to bring it back down. Before I do, just to prove that it's the same frame, I'm going to kind of segue into this other new feature in Final Cut Pro 10, which is called the Event Viewer. So in addition to this viewer, which shows us what's in the, basically wherever your mouse is, it'll show you something in the event, in the timeline. We have a dedicated Event Viewer. Under the window menu, Show Event Viewer. This brings up a separate viewer that shows you just what's in any event that you're on top. And now you can see these exactly match. So the left-hand side is what's from the event. The right-hand side is what's in the timeline. So Option F, I can bring that in. I'm actually on the wrong side there. And then I can move that clip. Maybe I want it at the beginning of the project for a title or something like that. Okay, so one kind of use for the event viewer, but this thing is really great. And what I like about it is most of the time, I don't want to use it. I can toggle it on and off. Control Command 3 will toggle it on and off. But when it's on, it's really useful for doing a couple of key things that are a little difficult to do without two different viewers here. And one of them is just doing some matching action. And we're going to do that. There we go. Okay. Just give an example. I'm going to play a little bit. This is a clip from a show called Missing Persons with Rainn Wilson and Jordan Belfi. And let's play a little piece of it.
So what happens when you have brain cancer?
Can you jam up where's this computer in the middle there? Just jam up the volume.
Do you think I have brain cancer?
Oh, man.
Okay, so Rainn
what
Wilson
happens
takes a
when you
few.
have brain cancer?
Do you think I have brain cancer?
And Jordan Belvey says, "Do you think I have brain cancer?" So what I want to do is I want to cut to a close-up right before he says, "Do you think I have brain cancer?" So we see him raise his head here. So I'm going to stop before he says his line, after he raises his head. And if I go to this event, we have a close-up of Jordan. And here I can just skim along, or I can JKL.
Do you think I have brain cancer?
And let's back up. So right before he says, "I think I have brain cancer."
You have brain cancer.
Let's go before he turns his head. So now I'm looking at the event viewer, and I'm seeing a matching action to the timeline because he's facing forward in both shots. So something difficult to do without two viewers. Now that I have that, I can do an insert or overwrite. I might just do a D for an overwrite here to see if it comes in pretty close. Oops, sorry, I should probably mark an out point on that clip before I do that. So let's mark an in point.
Do you think I have brain cancer?
And an out point, and then overwrite that. And now if I play that back,
That's what happens when you have brain cancer.
Do you think I have brain cancer?
Oh,
okay? So very easy to match action by using the event viewer. I don't have time to do the color correction.
Yeah, I think we should get
That's basically it. We're going to switch to audio.
Yeah, audio.
This time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop there. It's also very useful for color matching. If you want to color match between shots, you can bring up these two. And what's great about it, I'll just mention it, is you've got scopes, and you can show these video scopes. And now you have the opportunity with these scopes to put them in a vertical layout. So you can put scopes behind both these guys and compare your scopes side by side. Directly and do your color correction with scopes right there, and you can also put both of these viewers on a separate monitor if in fact you have a separate monitor connected. You can move them to a separate monitor to do color correction or color matching or action, whatever you want. So those are some of sort of a collection of kind of pieces that aren't huge in of themselves, but together pretty powerful set of new tools.
Just take a screenshot.
So I'm going to hide the video scopes to get you back normal. Okay, so I'm going to switch it back to Steve, who's going to talk a little bit about probably the biggest of these pieces here.
So we've looked at dual viewers, unified import window, red workflow, but all of those things are really important. But the new audio component feature to me is like the most important because everybody knows that audio is the redheaded stepchild of video, and we need to like really have good audio tools. And we have it now with audio or component-based audio editing. So I'm going to go ahead and open a project here. Let's see here. And here's just a 3-clip scene. And basically, the quick setup here, these two guys come in. This girl here, her name's Tracy. She doesn't know they're coming. She just saw a television show that just said that these guys are robbing the neighborhood. So she thinks these guys are up to, well, no good. So she didn't really expect them, and her roommate didn't tell her that they were coming over. So that's essentially the setup. So I have these 3 clips here. I'll play a little bit of it.
Jennifer! Oh, hey!
Get
you must be
back.
Tracy.
Tracy, get back!
Okay.
Tracy, that's my boyfriend Duncan and his friend Pedro.
I'm Pedro.
Okay. So I have these 3 clips. Now, so what I want to do is I want to get into the busty innards of this clip and look at the audio. Essentially, we want to look at the components, the individual channels that make up this clip. Now, a lot of times we're shooting with our cameras, we have multiple mics. You know, we have mic going to one channel. We have maybe mics going in, feeding channels 3 and 4 for reference audio. Look, nowadays there's just mics and source audio in just everywhere. And so we've got to be able to wrangle that. And in track-based video editing, like some other NLEs, you put everything on tracks. A1, A2, even Legacy Final Cut Pro, you'd put everything on a track. And you don't need to do that in Final Cut Pro because all of the components are there when you need them. And then when you don't need them, they kind of extract in here, and then they go away, and then just make your timeline really clean. So to actually get to the components, I'm going to control or right-click and choose Expand Audio Components. Additionally, you can option double-click on the components to hide and reveal them. Let me go ahead and close the inspector. Close the inspects. Now, if you select the clip, you'll notice if you go to the inspector, by the way, I'm still in, there we go, into audio. With the clip selected, those same components appear in this area called the channel configuration area. So if I spill this open, we're now looking at the components of this particular clip. And you can see it's, in this case, 4 separate mono channels. Now, how to identify these? Well, one quick way is go to the View menu and make sure clip skimming is turned on. And with clip skimming on, this is one of the best features Apple's introduced, in that you can just now skim through individual clip, put your pointer right in the areas you want to preview. So my mouse pointer is right in that channel 2.
Jennifer. Oh, hey, you must be Tracy.
Now I want to skim here. What is in here?
Jennifer. Oh, hey.
So this is actually a reference track from the camera.
Oh, hey.
Get back.
And this right here is Tracy's mic, or she's off mic. But you can see that the more important channel, this is the main online access microphone for the main character, in this case, Duncan.
Oh, hey, you must be Tracy.
All right, so I've identified that. So now what I want to do is show you how you can work with an inspector. It's like, I don't really need to see channels 3 and 4. I'm going to be working with channels 1 and 2. So all you need to do is turn off these check boxes over here, and essentially what it does is hide them from the view in the timeline. So I'm working with those. Additionally, I can then name these channels by double-clicking, and so this one I'll call Boyfriend, and then this one I'll call Tracy. So now, if you look in the timeline, those channels now are named appropriately, making them easy to identify. Now, so I'm going to play this.
Jennifer. Oh, hey, you must be Tracy.
Tracy. Get back.
Now, I want to hear the get back. It's stronger in that take where she turns the lamp around. But unfortunately, in this take,
You must be Tracy.
she says it
Hey, you must be Tracy.
over his line. Okay, so we need to kind of work through that a little bit. Really nice to get the audio from this take here. Now, one nice thing about the channel editor or the component editor is that you can independent audio control in every channel. You can change the panning, you can add effects to individual channels, you can assign them roles, and then you can even make range selections per channel. So for example,
Hey, you must be Tracy.
so this part here I don't
You
want.
must be Tracy.
So I'm just going to create a selection range for that section. Press V to disable it, just like that. And I don't really want to work with this one because I'll just hit V and I'll disable that. And we'll play this back and you can see.
Jennifer. Oh, hey.
Get back.
Now, let's start working on this clip here. So I'm going to use my little shortcut, Option, double click, to expand the audio components. By the way, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit here. And really what I need to do is I want to see if I can get some of the audio from this take to make up for this, muted take over here. That's where she kind of says her line over his. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to essentially extend this edit. I'm going to do essentially what's called a J cut here. I'm going to just trim just the boyfriend clip. And as I do this, notice the magnetic timeline kicks in. Final Cut knows that I want to extend that. And what it does is, notice because the Tracy track is muted, it knows to mute that track automatically as I'm moving it underneath his previous audio here. Right? So now I just need to find the place where he's saying what he's saying.
Back.
Let's see here.
Oh, hey, you must be Tracy. Hey, you must be Tracy.
So over here he says,
Oh, hey.
so
You must be Tracy.
so you must be Tracy. So what I could do is I could just skim here, right?
You must be Tracy.
Now I'm going to get my position tool, and I'm just going to grab this whole clip. Let's move it in there. See how this works.
Oh, hey, you must be Tracy.
Get back.
So with just a couple of little tweaks and moves around, I get obviously finesse that a little bit. Point is, though, I have complete control of each individual channel. I can move it, can trim it, can pull them out, extend it. I can even do volume adjustments. Like, for example, she's
Get back.
pretty loud here, so I'm going to go ahead and make a selection. And I'm going to zoom in so you can see this here. With the selection, if you put your mouse in between the selection and then drag downward, I'm doing a volume drop just between that range on that channel.
And it's keyframing.
And it's keyframing automatically. If you look, it added keyframes at the head and tail of that range.
Hey, you must be Tracy.
Get back.
Okay.
Okay, so that's one way to use audio components in a dialogue scene. Now what I want to do is hand the mic back over to Mark, and I want you to see where it really shines is in multi-camera editing. It's just, I have to say, just a little underscore I've been saying, Apple doesn't just take a feature and mimic what they've done in the past. They actually reimagine it, rethink it, and completely make it better. And I think you look no further than Apple's implementation of multicam to see that. Personally, it's the best multicam editor in the industry, bar none. And now it's even better, and Mark's going to show you why.
Although I recognize we're short on time, so I'm just gonna give you the basic idea here, without going through the full piece of it. However, just bring it up. This one and this one. So here's the idea. I have a multicam clip here that's built out of all these clips. It's 8 different clips. There's really 5 camera shoot and some graphics and some audio. So I'll bring up the viewer angle. If you have not used multicam in Final Cut Pro 10, I highly recommend it. I'm not going to explain how you do multicam. I'm just going to focus on what's new. So here I've got this angle editor with all these different angles. By default, you know, I can switch angles just by clicking on each of these to switch different angles so that when I create my cut, I can choose how to switch. So normally what you would do to set this up is say, well, when I create my edit, I'm going to want to switch angles for the video, but I want to keep all the audio on one track, is what I want to do here. I have some reference audio. All these guys are lip syncing to a CD or an MP3 or whatever. This is that audio. So I don't want that audio to change. So I'd switch to the audio only switching, select the audio, and then I would switch to video only switching, and now if I go through and cut this piece as it plays, I'll be able to switch angles. Let's actually go somewhere where we can see the drummer. I can go through and make cuts, or in this case, I'll hold the Option key down to switch, and I can switch to each angle, and the audio always stays the same. That's not new. What's new is this. I can now choose to have as many audio sources play with each clip as I want. And I can choose that before I build the multicam clip, and then I can change them afterwards. So in other words, right now I'm just using this one. Actually, I've already got one in here. I gave away the farm here. I didn't want you to see that. I'm on video. Zoom up so we can see here. So let's go back to this, and then we did audio only, and we selected this. Okay, so I've got video here, I've got audio here. However, since I've got audio, let's say I also want to include the mic. She's singing along. I want to include her audio as well. I want to mix them together. If I just clicked on this, it would select her instead. But if I add the command key, I can add this as an additional audio component to the mix. So now every time I cut, if I go back to video switching, every time I switch angles as I'm cutting, it will keep the audio from both of those angles, which is great. But to really understand how powerful it is, I'll just go ahead and make a few cuts here with video only. I'll just move forward and make another cut. I'm not, normally you would play this and do this, but just for time, I'm going to Option double click to open this. And there's our audio components. One of these is her clip, and one is the reference audio clip. And that's great, but check it out in the inspector. Here I have access to each separate camera, basically, the mic from each separate camera. And if you open these up, you can see the detail. In this case, there's just basically one channel each. So I can choose, like in this particular clip, where I've cut to the whole wide shot, maybe I want to add in the drums. I can just enable it here, and it will show up below, okay? So I can individually choose the pieces that I want to add, and once I've added them, then I can do the things Steve already showed you. I can set ranges, I can disable them, I can adjust the volume. So I have complete control on a clip-by-clip basis in a multicam clip. So think of a wedding video, and there's bad audio on one mic. You can pull in the audio from the other mic. You can mix them together how you want. You've got mics everywhere, you've got cameras everywhere. It doesn't matter. And in fact, the other piece I won't be able to show you here, if you've got multiple mics going into multiple cameras, you can choose which mic you want for every shot. You can choose any mic from any camera to mix with any shot on a shot-by-shot basis, and as many of them as you want. There's no tracks, there's no patching. You're not sitting there patching stuff. You're just choosing which ones to enable in the inspector, and then you can manipulate them down in the timeline. So I know there's more talking than demo, but I just wanted to get you the idea of how powerful this whole audio component idea is in the context of multicam. It really was kind of the one piece that people said, I love multicam, but I want to be able to do this stuff with the audio. Now you've got full control over what you do with the audio.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Steve's gonna wrap it up. We got one more little thing.
So I'll go through this last section pretty fast. The last thing, the major tentpole in this new release is something called streamline sharing. And in a nutshell, you go ahead and open this, open up one of these. In a nutshell, when I want to share this or export it, I have a new button over here that brings up all my export targets right here. They're right there, Vimeo, Apple device. I go add destination, I bring up the preferences, and I can then add, like email, I can add additional items to the list. So if I want to see an NI report, so as soon as I add those, they will then show up under the destination menu. So real easy. But the best part about this is this thing called bundles, real quickly. I can create what's called a bundle. Let's say I know I'm going to be delivering to Vimeo. I need a client. I need one for DVD, and maybe I need an Apple iDevice. I can actually go in and select these. I need Vimeo, DVD, and I can control-click on I can then say new bundle from selection. And it makes a bundle with 3 targets in it. And each of these targets has separate settings for it that you can go in and change. Point is, you now have essentially one-click access. When you send this movie, you export it, it's going to export out 3 different movies. It's going to make a DVD, a Vimeo, an upload to Vimeo, and it's going to make an Apple iDevice, all with one essentially click. So this is kind of very much like kind of compressor implementation. I can even name these, my client who doesn't pay. But anyway, so I can go ahead, put that in there, and then I can then choose up here the destination from this list. A couple of other things with regard to export. And by the way, there's another place under the file menu. That same share menu shows up here. So there's my client. So as soon as I choose that, the export window will appear, and I can see an info for each one. I can quickly go through and see there's my DVD, there's my Vimeo, there's my Apple devices, and it brings up separate settings for each of these that I can then change or override. What's really cool about any of these is if you roll over this little button here, it'll show you what devices it's compatible with. So that Apple device is compatible with all those things right there. So you'll never have to guess, will this play on an iPad 3, will this play on an iPad mini, what have you. There it is. And real handy. The next thing you do is just click Next. You name in this case, Vimeo, but in this case, you'd have to log in, whatnot. And click, put in your info, if it's Vimeo or YouTube, what have you. Keep clicking through, Next, and then you would save. And then what ultimately would happen is you would get all these different movies exported in one pass. Now, I do have to point this out. There's one other thing I should point out. I'm going to just do a simple one target export for a moment so you can see this. When I share this now, this is huge. I'm going to share this. I want you to see that's now, sharing is now a background process. You keep working, it's sharing in the background. You can keep spitting stuff out, keep editing, and it's in the background processing, spitting these things out. Okay? Pretty powerful. The next thing is, a couple last things is you can export range. You can actually now say, I want to export from here to here, and it's going to export only between the range. And lastly, chapter markers. If you want to that's and then now you have a new chapter marker button, and you can then name, whatever, chapter 1, that's really original. And then click OK. And when you export, you'll get name chapter markers for your QuickTime movies and or DVD and Blu-ray discs. And I think that was the fastest sharing exposition ever. All right?
Yeah, and we skipped a lot, but hopefully that helped. Here, you want to mention this?
Oh, yeah. We do a show, Mark and I. We have posting every week. I want to check out called Mac Breaks 2. We have 180 episodes now. And we do 180, yeah. We do a live show, too, where we take questions live. And then we also, what else? And we also, of course, we're a training company, so We do that. We do that too. Okay.
Right,
All right,
so,
so-
so we've got a full training on all this in detail, $29 or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you follow at Ripple Training on Twitter, you'll get notified. We'll go into these topics in more detail in MacBreak Studio, MacBreak Studio Live. Anything else? And thank you. Sorry for,
Yeah,
sorry for going
thanks,
over.
Hello. It pains me to say, I mean, obviously this isn't just a dot upgrade. This is a big, big deal. Took them an hour to race through this, and there's still a lot more to go. Unfortunately, there's no time for Q&A right now unless you kind of come up and get into their faces while they're breaking down all this equipment because they have to run back to the Burbank airport to get to San Francisco. And I feel very, very bad about that, but that's the way it is right now. So thank you, Steve Martin and Mark Spencer.